So how do you turn rankings into revenue? Well, Jon is gonna tell us, as he will dive into how you actually use your rankings in a way that they really skyrocket your sales, right? He's gonna dive into real life examples showing you how to take those insights into actions and a lot more. Looking forward to this session with Jon on how to use SEO for e-commerce.
Hi everybody, my name is Jon Bennion. I'm the CEO of Online Marketing Gurus here in the States. And first off, thank you so much for attending AdWorld, and thank you so much for attending my session. I'm really excited today to talk about SEO and things that you can do to help skyrocket your sales and to just drive more revenue online. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started. First off, just a little bit about me. I'm going to take about 30 seconds here. Bottom line, I've been doing online marketing for most of my professional career. I've had the opportunity to work with, at this point, probably thousands of small to medium-sized businesses, and I've helped them to grow their revenue online. And I've also been able to work with a couple of really large companies to help them grow out their SEO product offering. And this is just something that I absolutely love. I make a point to learn and to study so that I can share and give you guys just the absolute best information out there. So with that said, let's go ahead again. Let's get started with the good stuff this time. To begin, I'd like to start off with just the state of search and the general SEO landscape that we find ourselves in today, because it's really changed. It's changed a lot over the last couple of years. Bottom line, the most valuable traffic that you're getting, the organic search traffic, it's getting the squeeze. And there's a few things that are really playing into this. One, look, I remember when I started doing this, the Google ads were like in a yellow box and they were up at the top and it was like super clear that they were ads. And then on the right-hand side, there were more ads, and at the bottom, there were more ads. And look, Google has tested ways to integrate their ads more seamlessly into the organic landscape. And what they've come up with is a pretty good system, but they've also taken up more of the real estate. They've gone from the box to 3 and now 4 ads up top. And so one of the biggest things that we've seen is that, not only is it important to get first page ranking, but it's actually super important to get top 3 ranking. And the reason why is that, look, it's above the fold. And if you're below that, then you're going to have a harder time driving those clicks and getting that traffic. So that's one of the biggest things that we've seen change. Other things is that, just general market mentality, like people, according to a few studies that we've gone into, 62% of users are actually unaware now of the distinction between organic and ads. And 36% of users believe that whoever ranks on top is the most credible and is the market leader. These are just trends that we're starting to see and that are starting to develop. Other things that have happened, even though it's getting the squeeze and it's harder to rank and it's harder to drive traffic, it's actually becoming more and more valuable and more important than organic traffic. And that's because paid media is just more expensive. There's no way around it. I mean, I found a couple of great studies, but I'll just reference 2. One of them was put out by Buffer, and this was done, I want to say in 2015, 2016. They figured that the average cost per click on Facebook was about 35 cents. It was 28 cents in the US. It does vary quite drastically between countries. But compare that to today. A study done by WordStream points out that the average cost per click on Facebook has gone from 35 cents to $1.68. So we're seeing just really sustained growth in the cost of online marketing and media. And not just online. If we look at other, a study by CNBC points out that television ads have gone up, mobile, desktop, online video, YouTube, basically every single platform that you can promote via ads has become more expensive, okay? Another big thing that I want to talk about before we dive into what do I do and how do I drive traffic is another thing that's changed significantly over the last couple of years is this whole idea of zero-click searches. And I hope you all know what I'm talking about. How often have you, just in the last couple of days, think about it, gone to Google, searched for something, and found your answer right there, and you didn't even need to click? We're starting to see this more and more. We estimate that it's somewhere above 50, but I've seen recent studies that show that this might even be higher, somewhere in the 60 to 63% range of all Google searches have 0 clicks. Now, look, you might think that this is actually a good thing, and I'm going to explain why here in just a little bit. I'm going to send this, anybody that wants a copy of this, because we only have 20, 25 minutes. I'm going to be skipping a couple of these, but just know that it just talks a little bit more about the 0 click and how do I show up. Featured snippets. One thing I want to point out here. One of the big reasons why we're seeing so many 0 click searches is because of featured snippets. Some studies show that this is a couple of years ago Google showed a featured snippet in less than 10% of the search results. Now it's closer to 15%. So again, lots of opportunity for people to get the information they're looking for without actually clicking. All right. So with that, now that we have an understanding of the state of SEO and the landscape, it's harder to rank, less positions, got to be in the top 3. How do we combat 0 click searches? Let's dive into what we've been doing for our clients, what's working, and what you can do on your websites to get better results. All right. So the first thing I'm going to recommend, everybody pull up Google, find our SEO guide. We compiled, by we, I mean our co-founder, Mez, who is one of the smartest SEO people out there. He put together an ebook. It's about 100 pages, but essentially it's all of the learnings that we've gleaned by reviewing millions of URLs, by reading tons of studies. And what we have learned is that there are 3 core elements to SEO. There's technical SEO, there's relevance, which has to do with your content, and then there's domain authority, has to do with links and other things. But essentially, these are the 3 core elements. And it's important to focus on these 3 when you're trying to drive better results. So let's talk about step 1. Let's talk about technical SEO. I think that this is something, as part of my job, I get to look at tons of websites. I look at, I do lots of audits. I work with lots of newer businesses. And one of the things that I feel like people don't spend enough time on is good keyword research to understand what their potential customers are looking for, what types of terms the competitors are ranking for. But if you want good technical SEO, and by technical SEO, in this context, I'm talking about site taxonomy, I'm talking about site structure, URL structure, what sort of content and pages are you going to have? And I believe that what you should do is you should start with the end in mind. You should work backwards. You should do in-depth keyword research. One of my favorite tools to use for this is SEMrush or SEMrush. One day, maybe we'll figure out what the right answer is there. But look, put in your competition, and it's a great way for you to learn what terms they're ranking for, what terms are driving traffic, how competitive they are, what URL it's pointing to, and you should structure your site similarly. All right. You want to make sure that the pages that get the most search volume are the ones you focus on the most. I feel like technical SEO is one of the easier things to do, but B, it often gets overlooked and rushed over. Spend more time understanding how people search so that you can organize your website based on what they're looking for. All right. A good example of this is a client that we did work for. They sold dresses. And look, our research quickly showed us that there's 2,000 different ways to look for dresses. Actually, our research showed that men look for dresses in about 10 and women look for dresses in about 1,600 different ways. But even with all of the various and different types of, ways to look for dresses, we figured that it was actually broken down into about 6 or 7 different categories. For example, like dress type. Is it a casual? Is it a day? Is it an evening? What about length? Regular, long, mini, style? Something like, is it a wrap? Is it an off the shoulder, strapless? Price, sizes. And so what we did is that we helped this client structure their website and their categories so that each one of these major categories that we found that people typically searched under, we created pages that fit into these categories. All right. And a good way to understand this, and this goes into step 2, which is the relevance. But once you have a good technical foundation, then it helps with your step 2 and the relevance. But look, a really good way to go about this is to structure your site sort of like this. You'll have your homepage that sort of talks about most things that you do. Right underneath it, you'll have topic pages, and then you should have subtopic pages, and then you should have posts or information that support or talk about the next step up. This is a great opportunity to interlink. This is a great way to build content. And we've started to adopt this sort of content approach when we're working with our clients, and we've seen amazing results. I'm actually going to show you some of the case studies or some of the results that we've been able to drive using this sort of system, okay? And this works for e-commerce too, all right? Sometimes when I talk about content, the e-commerce folks just kind of roll their eyes back in their head and, oh, no, you need better content and a little bit more content than what you think you need. And what I mean by that is that one of the things we start to see is that I see people skip these 2 steps and go right to a blog, okay? They skip category, subcategory, and they create blogs, and they have maybe like service or product pages, and then they just start to write a lot of blogs. You don't need as many blogs as you think. What you need is better category and subcategory content, all right? In fact, I think, yep, turns out my next slide goes, talks about that. What we found is that there's a direct correlation with how much content you have and your rankings with Google. If you look at pages across the internet, the average comes out to about 1,960, 2,000 words. There's that. If you have that much content, you're more likely to rank in the top 3 positions. This is different per vertical and per industry. A good way to understand this, though, is to look at, again, your competition, see how much content they have, and then make sure you're adding a little bit more to it. All right. So back, just to further, back up what I said, it's really not about posting 2 or 3 blogs every single week anymore. That hasn't worked in a while. It's about making the content that you have a little bit better. In fact, one of the things that we're doing that we're seeing some tremendous results is instead of producing a ton of new content, we're going back and adding more content to clients' websites. So for example, let's say that their homepage has 2,000 words, we'll add 1,000 words more. Let's say their category page has 500, we'll add 1,000 words more. Your main pages, you should be adding more content so that you are a better answer, all right? So another way to think about this is that, look, I look at search trends, and I look at what's happening here in the States to give me a pretty good signal of what's to come. And what we're seeing here is that educational information like content that just has a lot of references or that has just, again, more, okay? It seems to be ranking higher and higher and higher. And I think this is because user behavior has changed. We're far more likely to do our own research. We're far more likely to spend more time on the internet learning about what we want. Buyers are way okay with reading, 4 or 5 different articles about a product that they're about to buy. And so Google has seen that this is what's happening, and so they're starting to rank websites that take that same approach, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about, because again, we're talking about relevance, and that has everything to do with your website and the content. I want to talk a little bit about EAT and, your money, your life. So if you're listening to this presentation and you happen to have a website that deals with health or with finance, one of the major Google updates that we've seen over the last couple of years is the Your Money, Your Life. And then, their best practices is the EAT, the expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. And what I would recommend is that I think you should practice the expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness in any, if you're writing content, you should be considering that. But look, if you're especially in one of those verticals, that's the Your Money, Your Life category, make sure you spend more time focusing on this, on making sure that your content is just really, really good, or else you're going to have a really hard time ranking, okay? If it affects your money, if it affects your life, you have to up your content game. It has to be better than what you're used to. It has to be better than what you produced a few years ago. And that's true for most categories, but especially for the YMYL categories. Okay, let's talk about how we used, so to summarize real quick, some of the things that we've done. We've structured websites so that they're based on what the users are looking for, all right? We've created content, sub-content, and then supporting content that talks about those main categories. We've produced better content that dives more into educational information. We've, instead of producing more individual pieces of content, we've gone back and made content better, okay, by adding additional information, making it more educational. And let's talk about how that's worked. So we have a pretty cool example of this. Bulk nutrients, they're in the health and supplement space. There's a few things. This is it's really hard to see, I'm sure, but this is just a screenshot of a long form page that they have. All right. So the first thing I want to point out is that we added just a ton of content working with them and their team. Remember I said that there's a correlation with content length and first page ranking. Well, like we went way over on this one and added the average is 2,000. This has 6,000. And guess what? If you look at competition, they're going to have similar numbers. So again, you can't just take that 2,000 number. You've got to look at how much your competition, because it does vary by industry. But we added a bunch more content. All right. The other thing that we did is that we integrated reviews. All right. And one of the things that this helped with is that this helps with the EAT stuff. I mean, this goes to trustworthiness. Another thing that we did is we put user-generated content, okay? When they were tagged or when someone talked about it on social, we added this to a section on the page, all right? Another thing that we did is that we had video explainers added. Another great thing that you can do with videos is you can transcribe it and get a ton of content from it. But this helped with the educational side of things and help us show as an expert. We put in an FAQ. And I'm going to talk about why this is so important here in a couple of slides. But again, like what sort of questions were people asking? What were they looking for? And again, we looked at search patterns to determine this. But look at all the different elements that we put onto these pages so that we could rank higher. I'm going to talk about this more here in another slide. But frequently asked question, making sure that's in the schema, one of the most important things you can be doing right now for those no-click searches. Well, I guess I'm going to talk about it right now. Look, frequently asked questions schema. If you need help with schema, we built, if you have a WordPress website, we built a free plugin tool that will help you to write schema. Do a quick Google search and you'll find it. Reach out to me, I can get it to you. But if you show up in that section in the featured snippet, and if you have the right type of information, it actually drives way more traffic and way more buyers than what you might think. All right. We've got case study after case study that shows us that once we updated their schema, once we helped them to rank, that it just, even though globally they're not getting as many clicks, if you do it right, and especially if you're product or e-commerce based, it's a great way to drive clicks. But I'm still not seeing it done on a lot of websites. In fact, I would say that less than half of the websites that I've looked at this week had any sort of schema at all. So ask yourself, do you have schema markup? Talked enough about schema. No, we didn't. There's one more thing I want to mention. Review schema. You'll notice that the next time you do a Google search for a product, see if you can find it and see if it maybe impacts your clicks. Review schema is a fantastic way for you to stand out. Normally people have to pay to, if you're talking about site extensions on ads, you have to pay for those sorts of things. If you properly set it up with your schema, you can get that included in your organic listing. But look, these are the things that we did. Again, we added content. All right. We added content that spoke to their trustworthiness, to their expertise. We added user-generated content. We added schema. And look, they increased both in rankings and in traffic significantly. All right. So those are the things that you want to do. The last thing that I'm going to mention when it comes to, this is just kind of a little asterisk that we've tested with a few clients, but one more thing before I move on to authority and how to build that with relevancy. Play around with your title tags. So for example, adding in the date or adding in a time frame. This happened to me actually as I was doing research for this presentation. I kept including the date in a bunch of my searches, and sure enough, the title tags that included the date of what I was looking for, well, they're the ones that got the click. So if you have a product or a service that you can somehow incorporate this sort of thing, a date or I would say even a question mark, or they're just something I'm learning is that if you want to increase your clicks, play around with your title tags, see if it doesn't help you out a little bit. Okay. All right, I know we're running out of time, and so I'm going to get to the last thing, building authority. There's a few things that I want to talk about here that I think are really important. Look, links still matter, all right? But the number of links isn't as important as it used to be. Where are they coming from? The velocity to which they're coming from, and where are the links pointing to? And let me tell you a little bit more about that. Well, I guess before I tell you a little bit more about that, this study by Ahrefs showed us that there is direct correlation with your position in Google and the number of links that you have. Sometimes I hear that links don't matter. Yes, they do. They absolutely matter. They've changed. I was in this space well before Penguin and Panda. I remember when people would just build links and you would rank. It's not that way anymore. You have to have solid technical SEO. You have to have good relevance. But links are something that, especially once you get to that first page, where they can help differentiate you. But here's what's fun. Because sometimes I'll work with clients and companies that maybe they're newer and they're competing against people that are around forever and have thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of links. How do I compete, John? I've got 10. Where do I go? This study that was done by Backlinko, and I hate this graph, I'm sorry, but let me explain it to you. What this shows is that there's actually a direct correlation with your rankings and your URL rating. So not domain authority per se, not domain rating, but the URL rating. So let's say that I have a product and I want to compete with somebody that has a much older, a much more authoritative website. The page that I'm actually driving traffic to, though, their URL rating, they probably don't have nearly as many backlinks to those inner pages as you might think. And so you building links, deeper links to page, like URL specific, instead of just your homepage, actually has a pretty good impact on your rankings. So URL rating, or we're starting to see that links to specific URLs, not just your homepage, actually makes a pretty dang big difference, and it really does help you to compete with people that have older or higher domain authority. So look, this is an example of a client where that's exactly what we did. We started to go after specific URLs instead of like just overall homepage or domain rating type links. And look, again, I know it's hard to see, but you'll notice that they had significant increase in traffic to those pages. I actually have tons of different examples of this, but one of the things I promised to do is to give you my favorite tools. Ahrefs is absolutely one of my favorite tools. They have a domain comparison feature that allows you to see how many referring domains, where they're coming from, what type, are they follow links, and how often are they getting those links. So use Ahrefs. That's what we use when we're doing work with our clients. Like backlink tools, look, they're not the most accurate things in the world, but this one is by far the most accurate that I've personally worked with. Okay, but we use this to figure out what URLs should we target, what pages should we go for. Okay, I'm really running out of time. So other things that you can do to get yourself a couple of links. Look, be active in forums. If you have e-commerce products, I personally actually just bought something from somebody who I didn't even know. I have a Can-Am. It's like a Razor side-by-side. And I was looking for some accessories for it. I'm in one of the forums, and there was just happened to be somebody who was especially active. And we started up a conversation. Turns out that he owned the website that he was referencing. And look, never once did I feel like he wasn't being helpful or wasn't trying to provide good information. And he linked to other websites other than his own too. And so, but I'm telling you, forums, if you can find a really good community around the products that you sell, try to be active in that, especially if you're in the smaller startup phase and you're trying to just, launch. That's really good time spent. The last thing, I kind of lump it in with links. Look, there are going to be no follow links, but there's lots of products that you can absolutely utilize affiliate type programs. And again, while it's not a link that's really going to help you in terms of your organic ranking, I do believe that links in general do help with domain authority, and that has an impact. And so if you're in affiliate programs, that's also not a bad way to go about. All right, so look, we've taken this 3-step process, focusing on good technical SEO, adding in a bunch of good relevant information, and then building out domain authority, especially by targeting the right URLs and not just the homepage. This has helped us to help clients. Like this is a client where we help them to generate $2.1 million in 12 months. And the exact same stuff that I'm talking about today is what we did for them, and it worked. This is another one where we helped increase their organic revenue by 150%. I've got another one, 37% increase in organic visitors, 176% increase in total website visits. I probably put in quite a few. And the reason I did that is that I want you to know that this stuff is what's working and what I want you to spend time on when you're thinking about SEO. Okay. All right. Look, as part of this, we do have our, we have our perk. If you are at all interested in learning more or getting a free audit from me or someone on my team, go ahead and check out our perk. The last thing I'll say is that we also, as part of this conference, we're going to be giving, you can get a marketing plan perk, or you can get a UX, user experience audit on your website as well. Look, thank you so much for attending my session. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm on LinkedIn. Again, you can find my information in the portal. Thank you so much.